Joe Burrow was on another planet Sunday afternoon, 27 of 39 for 251 yards, count them, 5 touchdowns. He did have that one pick six, but that was in garbage time. That was a missed assignment by a receiver. We won't dwell on that. The Bengals do what they need to do. Get a 41-24 win, a beatdown, a mauling, destructing the Las Vegas Raiders, who then on Monday fire half of their offensive staff. We don't care about them. Get them out of the way. It's on to the big one. Baltimore is up next on Thursday Night Football in prime time. We'll talk about all that. We'll talk about why Joe is seemingly so pissed off. We'll talk about the Baltimore Ravens. And I'll tell you the one thing I want the Bengals fan base to quit caring about. Welcome. You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. It is a Monday morning, a Victory Monday. You like to call it when your team wins. The Bengals move to 4-5. The big story, not what we saw on the field necessarily, between the whistles, right? Everyone expected this Bengals team to beat the Raiders. I told you that last week. It's why I didn't really talk about the game that much. If they couldn't beat this team, then you got a bigger issue than trying to climb out of the hole. You've got a team that didn't really apparently care. But that's not what we had to deal with. Instead, we're in a good position. The Bengals do what they have to do, but Joe Burrow, with the game in hand, gets caught multiple times on the sideline. I don't know that caught is the right word, but he is seen multiple times on the sideline, unhappy, not happy about the way things are going, despite the fact his team is clearly coasting to a win. And that's the way it should be, right? Like, beating the Raiders, and we saw this if you watch the video that the Bengals put out afterward of the team like celebrating in the locker room. Joe's like, no, chill out. We have an effing game in 4 days. We have one that actually matters coming up. He didn't say those exact words. He said the effing part. But he was telling his teammates what he was trying to convey there. This is nothing. This is what teams like the Bengals are supposed to do. They don't have anything to celebrate yet. They have 4 wins. All 4 of those opponents that they've beat this year, all 4 of them are 2-7 today. All 4 of them suck. There's nothing to celebrate. If you're the Bengals and have the expectations you did this year, there's nothing to celebrate about right now. You have too good of a roster and too good of a history the last few years to care about beating Gardner Minshew at home with a banged-up offensive line. The Raiders had nothing. Nothing to celebrate for the Bengals right there. It's like, I mean, that's the equivalent. Like, if you're celebrating after that game, and if you're a fan, that's fine. If you want to be happy as a player, that's fine. But, like, over-celebrating, that's the equivalent of, like, if a player scores a touchdown late in the fourth quarter to cut his deficit to 14 and then does an end zone celebration. Nothing to celebrate. You're down and out. This is a season. This is a season, and right now in the season, you have underachieved greatly. So that's why Joe Burrow's upset. Maybe there are some other reasons, but that certainly comes into play. He said afterward, nothing to celebrate. They're chasing perfection every day, and they certainly aren't there yet. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning used to do this too. They'd be up big in the fourth quarter. Something would go wrong, and for Burrow, certainly that pick six set him off, where I think it was Andre Oshavas missed a block, and him or Trenton Irwin, I don't remember. But either way, it's not good enough. It's too late in the season to be doing things like that against a team like the Raiders, who actually have some decent guys in the secondary. But you get the point. Joe's got to hold this team to the standard that we saw Manning and Brady do for all those years. You got to be perfect all the time to climb out of the hole that they're in, and that's why Joe's so irritated right now. There's no more time for mistakes. They had wiggle room. Everyone's got wiggle room coming into the season. They don't have it anymore. They pissed it away with losses to the Patriots and a botched field goal. They could be going into this divisional game on Thursday night at 2-0. That's why he's mad. That's why everyone should still be a little bit irritated. I'm keeping the faith. This is about as fired up as I've ever been after a win because I'm right there with him. His young team, I guess, just, you got to stay on point. There's no time to celebrate. There's no time to celebrate anytime you have a Thursday night game, let alone when you have a Thursday night game, you're 4-5, and your 4 wins have come against opponents who are combined 8-28 on the season. Step it up. That's what Joe Burrow's saying. He saw those videos when he was a teenager of Manning and Brady. He knows what's up. Simple as that. So that's where we're at. No time to really talk about the Raiders game. This will be the only podcast I do between now and the Thursday night game against Baltimore. I got a lot going on in my life. And Baltimore, this is the one, right? This is the prove-it game. Okay, you can beat up on the chumps. Okay, you can keep it close with the elite teams in the NFL. Can you get an actual win to get back to 500 on the road in prime time against the leading candidate for MVP right now in Lamar Jackson? That's the question, because Joe Burrow is not interested in beating the Las Vegas Raiders. The number one pick, the Heisman Trophy winner with a $250 million contract, he didn't come to beat the Las Vegas Raiders. Oakland Raiders rolls off the tongue so much easier. Elite players don't care about beating teams like the Raiders. That's just taking care of business. Beating the Raiders, like putting your pants on in the morning. Yeah, you need to do it to get where you're going, but no one should celebrate it. Once you're past the age of 3, no one should give you a pat on the back for getting dressed in the morning. Elite chefs don't celebrate because they did a good job cutting the vegetables. They wait till the plate's out there and the customer's happy. That's what Joe Burrow's doing. You didn't come here to beat up on JV NFL squads who are going to be picking 6 in the draft next year. That's why Joe Burrow's mad. And this is a big one. We'll get a smile on Thursday night if the Bengals can win in Baltimore. Just trying to look into kind of what the Ravens have done. It's kind of their classic thing, right? They look indestructible. They have losses to the Raiders. They have a loss to the Browns. At other times, yesterday they're playing a Denver team that had won 5 of their last 6 and been really solid, and they absolutely obliterate them. What was the final there? 41-10. So the thing about Baltimore is they show up to the big ones. For whatever reason, this is a team year in and year out, and I think all teams do this to an extent. It just stands out a little more with Baltimore because when they're on, they are absolutely on. But they're not going to be asleep at the wheel when the Bengals come to town on Thursday night. Just looking at their schedule. So they're 6-3. There's one common thread. I thought it was going to be time of possession. I thought they run the ball a ton. They're great at running the ball. They're running it on a historic clip with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. But one thing stuck out to me, and again, it's going to come down to this defense keeping the Bengals in the game, not letting things get out of control. Because when Baltimore scores fewer than 28 points this season, they are 0-3, 0 wins, 3 losses. When they score 28 or more, they are 6-0. That's a tall task to ask the Cincinnati Bengals to hold the Ravens to 28 or less, but that's where we're at. Last time Baltimore scored, let's see here. They scored their 28th point in the fourth quarter pretty early with 9:05 left to go in regulation. Of course, that one went to overtime. But that's where the Bengals are at. They've just got to contain. You're not going to stop Lamar Jackson, but you got to try to contain Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and really the whole offense. I mean, Zay Flowers had an incredible game against Denver yesterday. So just contain. Just contain. We know that the Bengals aren't going to slow them down. And maybe you give up more than 28, but can you keep it to 31? Can you keep it to 30? Can you keep it somewhere down there where Joe Burrow, when he gets the ball at the end of the game, has a chance to go put it away? By the way, on Sunday against the Raiders, and I know the Raiders stink, and I just said you don't want to celebrate it too much, but it wasn't just how good the offense was, but it's how they were good. Like Joe Burrow on all the touchdowns, just scrambling, out there being backyard Burrow, Dyson, doing what he had to do to figure things out. He has kind of hit that. I saw someone refer to it on Twitter as Dark Knight mode. And we know what his record is in November. Like November on, what is he, 16-7 now? Something like that. He's hit that mode. Again, angry Joe Burrow has arrived. And if you give him a shot, I'll take him 99 times out of 99 times. He gets on another level. He's got that chip on his shoulder now. He seems to be putting that. If he's doing that, by the way, when the cameras are on, what do you think's going on behind the scenes? You think he's not telling these guys, hey, we didn't come here to beat the Raiders? We didn't come here to get wins against the Browns and the Giants and the Panthers? Did we forget who we were just 2 seasons ago? Who we were last season? I mean, this Bengals team was in the playoff hunt without him. So Baltimore likes to put drives together. They're not as great at time of possession as I would have thought, but at any rate, when they get going, they're hard to stop. When they're 28 points or better, they're 6-0. When they score less than 28, they're 0-3. So let's see if the defense can step it up, which has been not something they've been able to do. But at some point, they've got to find their stride. If this team wants to get where it wants to go, they've got to find their stride at some point. Maybe you get chaotic. I mean, they kind of did that yesterday. We saw some more blitzes. First play of the game, you see Mike Hilton come off the edge on a blitz. Maybe Lou Anarumo is listening to In the Jungle like you are right now and getting some ideas. A lot of people are saying that. So we'll see. You got to find a way. You got to find a way. Got to find a way to hold them to, like, I'm not even saying 28. Let's say 31 or less. Bengals have a shot. Go out there and get a 34-31 win. Defensively, Baltimore, I mean, I don't know that it matters right now. I think the Bengals offense is on a level right now where they're going to be able to do pretty much, I don't know whether I want to say whatever they want, but I mean, this is a Baltimore defense that can be taken advantage of. I mean, prior to Denver yesterday, they gave up 29 to the Browns, which I do believe some of that was some foolish plays. I should have looked into this before you were recording the actual podcast. I thought that was a scoop and score. Was that? Apparently not. No, Baltimore fumbled, Cleveland, fumbled. At any rate, let's stick to the things I actually looked at before I opened the microphone up today. But they're a defense that can be scored on, right? We saw Tampa score 3 touchdowns on them in the fourth quarter 2 weeks ago. The Commanders put up 23, nothing great. And the Cincinnati Bengals, the team they're playing, put up 38 points on them and would have put up 41 had Zach Taylor just tried to get an extra 10 yards when Joe Burrow is absolutely cooking them. But we can forget that overtime disaster if they get a win on Thursday night. You go 0-2 against Baltimore in the division. Hard to win the division. So defense, just don't let it get out of hand. Keep them 31 or under. Give your offense a shot at the end of it, and we'll see what happens. That's got to be the formula for the Bengals this weekend or this Thursday. Give Joe Burrow a shot at the end and hope that Zach Taylor learned his lesson from last time, right? Scared money don't make money, Zach. You got to go for it when you get the opportunity, because we saw what happened last time. If you need a refresher, the Bengals got the ball in overtime, tied at 38. Joe Burrow had been carving that defense up all day, and they just said, we'll settle for a 50-yard field goal, and it was a bad snap, and it didn't go in. So I don't even know if it was a bad snap. Whatever it was, it didn't go in. You have to hope that Zach Taylor has learned. And again, I know me sitting here saying you hope the NFL coach has learned. I think it's kind of consensus, and I think he knows. And I think anyone in his position who doesn't attempt to evolve, you evolve or you die. Obviously not literally, but you got to figure these things out. And I think he said afterward in the press conference, might do things a little different. So do you trust Evan McPherson? Yeah. But would you like to have it from 44 instead of 54? Yeah. So going to be a heavyweight bout. I mean, these are the top 2 guys really statistically playing quarterback in the NFL right now. They both have 20 touchdown passes. Only Baker Mayfield. How about that? If you're a Browns fan right now, and none of you are listening, so I can pick on you, the top 3 touchdown throwers in the NFL, Baker Mayfield at 1, the guy you took at number 1 overall at one point. Number 2, Joe Burrow. Tied at second is Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. So Joe Burrow, who grew up in Ohio and has become the guy you guys all thought Baker was going to become. A little bit of an edge, but backs it up on the field. That's what the Browns thought Baker Mayfield was going to be. And then 3, Lamar Jackson and Baltimore, the team that did you wrong, I should say. So, and do the Browns have anyone who's oh my goodness. Deshaun Watson and Jameis Winston have already thrown the same amount of touchdowns this year. How about that? Boy. Okay. At any rate, yeah. You've got Joe Burrow, 20 touchdowns, 4 picks, and a passer rating of 108. You've got Lamar Jackson, 20 touchdowns, 2 picks, passer rating of 121. Just incredible. Just incredible. So these are the 2 big dogs. These are the 2 quarterbacks. These are the best 2 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Josh Allen, of course, is in that conversation. But between those 3, those are the 3 who are playing at the highest level right now. And if you're wondering, Patrick Mahomes, 8 touchdown passes on the year. Obviously, they're undefeated. But if you would have told me in week 9, going into week 10, of course, Mahomes plays tonight, Joe Burrow has 12 more passing touchdowns than Mahomes, I would assume Mahomes got hurt. Instead, Mahomes is 7-0, 8-0, whatever he is, and the Bengals are 4-5. NFL is weird. As soon as you think you have it figured out, they evolve, they adapt, and that's why the Chiefs are undefeated and have won back-to-back Super Bowls, because they do adapt. Let's see Zach Taylor do the same and really stick it on Thursday night. A little fired up. Good to go. So, yeah, it's a chance for the Bengals to change that narrative. And look at this. Their next 3 come against playoff teams that are currently in the playoffs. So you go to Baltimore on Thursday, then you get a nice little break before going to L.A. Is that in L.A. or Cincinnati? At any rate, they take on the Chargers, who currently are in a wild card spot. So you get another opportunity. If I can get to their schedule at some point, that would be fantastic. So they go to Los Angeles to play in that disgusting SoFi Stadium. But they get 10 days off in between, and then they welcome the Steelers on December 1st after the bye week. So their next 3 are against teams that are in the playoffs right now, and 2 of them, the Ravens and Steelers, seem like locks to make the postseason. So you got, it's going to be weird on November 8th. So Friday is November 8th. It'll be November 8th, and the Bengals will only have 1 remaining game in November. That'll be a doozy. But it's an opportunity right here to kind of flip the narrative. And this is what the Bengals, they need this opportunity. We'll learn everything we need to know in the next 3 weeks. You got Baltimore, Chargers, Steelers. All 3 playoff teams right now. What can you do about it? You win on Thursday in Baltimore, by the way. Backyard Burrow comes alive again. And suddenly those next 2, you're not the underdog. Suddenly it's the Chargers, a little bit nervous in their boots, seeing that you just beat the Ravens and you've had 10 days rest. And then you get the Steelers coming in for the first time in December. Great I mean, this next month is everything. This next month is kind of like the playoffs for the Bengals. I mean, right now, it might as well be, because you got to win 2 of the 3. You've got to win 2 of these 3. This is, I mean, do whatever you need to do to keep that heart rate down to stay healthy, because these next 3, this is as close as you will get to playoff football in November. Baltimore, Chargers, Steelers. Got to win 2 of 3. And really, you should win 3 of 3. If you want to be taken seriously, want to be taken as a contender, go do it. And I think Joe Burrow is leading the charge on that. That's why we have angry Joe Burrow right now. Let's get into some quick hits. One thing I do want to point out as we go back to that Raiders game, just a little tad. I'm trying to keep an eye. Oh, wow, the Saints have fired head coach Dennis Allen. I've got Twitter up here because I was thinking maybe some trade news would pop up, but Saints fire Dennis Allen after losing to the Panthers. So anyways, in the quick hits, I want to give props to the front office for a couple things that we saw on Sunday. A few things, actually. One, Thursday night, Joe Mixon looked really, really good on Thursday Night Football, taking on the Jets. I like Joe Mixon. I appreciate everything he did in Cincinnati, but the Bengals were right to move on. You didn't know what effort you were getting out of him every Sunday, and it drove me and probably the coaching staff insane. They decided Chase Brown and Zach Moss were the way to go. Well, guess what? On Sunday, Chase Brown, on a rookie deal, much more cap-friendly than what Joe Mixon would have been. Chase Brown, a 5th-round pick just a year ago, went out there and went for 157 total yards along with a touchdown. Early on, he looked like the guy. What was his yards per carry? I don't know because they don't have it up here. This is what I get for relying on other services. And can I pull this up? At any rate, that was he averaged 4.4 yards per carry. He also caught 5 passes for 37 yards, so 7 yards. I mean, just an excellent day from Chase Brown, who with Zach Moss out with that neck injury, and it might be the case for a while, it looks like. Went out there and proved he can be the featured number 1 back. And again, I know it's the Raiders. I know they stink. I know they fired half their staff today. But at any rate, the Bengals in the 5th round get a running back who is certainly worthy of carrying the load. That's big. The other thing, Mike Gesicki. They brought in some tight ends now, and they're going to continue to do this with Joe Burrow. They're going to bring in guys who have proven they can play at a high level and maybe have their stock has dropped. They did it with Hunter Hayden. Why am I forgetting his name? Hayden. People are kicking themselves in the car. Hayden Hurst. I'm kicking myself in the face. Hayden Hurst came in, and he did it. He went and got a big contract from the Panthers. That didn't work out because the Panthers suck and the Bengals don't. But they do it with Gesicki this year. 5 catches, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns on Sunday. Again, just getting guys on team-friendly contracts whose stock has dropped a little bit and making them work in this offense, recognizing that, going out and getting them. And then a guy who does make a lot of money, Trey Hendrickson, had 4 sacks on Sunday. Again, he's playing against a JV offensive line, but you go back and look. If you remember in 2021, Carl Lawson was pretty good for the Bengals. He had been banged up, but a lot of people wanted the team to re-sign him, and sure, that was understandable. But instead, they let him walk to the New York Jets, where Carl Lawson gets $15 million a year. They signed Trey Hendrickson, I think a name that maybe a lot of Bengals fans had not heard of because he was in New Orleans. You know, he still, for whatever reason, I don't know if he's not flashy enough or what, but doesn't get the respect he deserves. Trey Hendrickson gets $15 million a year. So both the guy the Bengals let walk and the guy they bring in get $15 million a year in free agency. Since that time, Trey Hendrickson has 50.5 sacks. Carl Lawson has 9.5 sacks. Not a knock on Lawson. He's been banged up a lot. I feel for the guy. We all like him in Cincinnati, although he did get, I think, $30 million guaranteed from the Jets, so he's going to be fine. And he's doing pretty good with the Cowboys this year, actually. But 4 sacks on Sunday. It's easy to sit here and knock on the Bengals front office from time to time, which I do, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I give them props when it's due. Yesterday, aside from Joe Burrow, the big dogs in that game, Chase Brown, a 5th-round draft pick, day 3 draft pick out of Illinois, Mike Gesicki, someone they kind of brought in on a low-end contract, and Trey Hendrickson, who, yeah, he makes a lot of money, but 4 sacks, they could have went a different direction. That was an all-time great decision by the Bengals. A lot of fans wanted Carl Lawson to stay. They said, no, we're going in this direction. And in the process, for the same amount of money it would have cost them to keep Lawson, they got the best pass rusher probably in franchise history, certainly in my lifetime. So good on that. Props to the front office. Again, it's the Raiders. They stink. You should beat them, but they beat them with guys who they did a great job bringing in. Eric All looks like he tore his ACL. That was another guy, I think, 5th-round pick this year. Either way, a day 3 pick, and he's looked awesome. He's built a ton of chemistry. As far as a day 3 rookie goes, I don't think you could ask for much more. The trust was clearly there with Joe Burrow after 9 games. Looks like he tore his ACL on Sunday. That absolutely sucks. Heartbroken for him. He's clearly put in the work. I believe he tore that same ACL last year in college at Iowa. So, yeah, that's a rough one. Hope he can bounce back, but that's one less weapon the Bengals now have. They have a lot of depth in the tight end room, but he was clearly he was the number 1 or 2 guy, depending on the day, right there with Mike Gesicki. I think Gesicki's kind of put the separation in there now. But now you kind of have to go back to Drew Sample, who did have a touchdown yesterday, and Tanner Hudson, and go from there. What else do we have? I will say, I mentioned the Dennis Allen firing. If there is a trade, I will do a YouTube short, which I have never done. If the Bengals make a trade, and Diana Rossini of The Athletic is reporting that they have been calling around, looking at guys on defense, but pop over to the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@InTheJungle. If you can't find it, shoot me a message on Twitter, text me, whatever you want to do, and I'll send it to you. And the final thing, I said at the top of the show that Bengals fans care about something that you got to stop caring about. Not that big of a tease. Maybe you figured out that is the 3rd-round pick from this year, Jermaine Burton, who, despite T. Higgins being out on Sunday and despite Charlie Jones being out on Sunday, Jermaine Burton, who allegedly had 1st-round talent but went to the 3rd round because of off-the-field character issues and pretty much seemingly a lack of maturity, he was a healthy scratch on Sunday. Bengals fans online, for whatever reason, have just taken a massive liking to this guy, and that's good, that's great. Love who you want to love, cheer for who you want to cheer for. But do you think he cares as much about his future as seemingly a lot of fans do? If you can't get to meetings on time, allegedly, if you can't make the walkthrough, allegedly, and then certainly if you're in the doghouse and you show up to work wearing pajamas on Sunday, maybe the factor that you need to be an NFL player isn't quite there. Maybe the qualities that you want to have in a guy who you expect to go out on Sundays and help you win aren't there. So I would say to fans, do what you want to do, but there's a lot of good players on this team and a lot of high character players on this team to spend your energy on. I don't know that we should spend it on Jermaine Burton. If you want to send your love that way, go ahead. I hope the best for him, and Zach Taylor seems to think he is going to have a long, nice career in Cincinnati, and you would expect Zach Taylor to say that because he is, above all, a very kind human being. However, Jermaine Burton, he's got a role on Sunday. They make it quite clear they're happy with the direction he's going in. They've put things out there to make sure he can be involved in the game plan, and then he does something. We're still not 100% sure what, but it certainly seems like he missed a meeting or a practice or a walkthrough or he was late, whatever it is. He is a rookie in the NFL. He gets handed a lottery ticket being drafted into this offense with the Cincinnati Bengals and one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. Oh, and by the way, you've got the best receiving duo in the NFL, so you don't have to face as tough a coverage as you might had you gone somewhere like, I don't know, pick a team that doesn't have any receivers. I can't think of any right now. There's a lot of good receivers in the league. Let's say Jacksonville. Let's say Carolina. Let's say the Steelers. I mean, there are so many places he could have gone, and this is why the other 31 teams passed on him at least once. There are so many other places he could have gone where he wouldn't get this great opportunity that he's getting in Cincinnati, and yet he doesn't really seem to care, and that's unfortunate. I hope he gets it turned around, but I would say there are a lot of guys on this team, if you're a fan out there, they're really worth your time. They're really worth getting behind. I'm talking about before this all happened, before the whatever happened this week that made him a healthy scratch. Spend your time on people who care about the game maybe as much as you do, because it certainly doesn't seem like Jermaine Burton cares that much. All right, that's the last I'm going to talk about him until he does something on the field, because I've never really understood the love around it. But whatever. Fan how you want to fan, I say as I tell you to root for other people. Okay, that's all I got for you. Bengals in Baltimore on Thursday night. Biggest game of the year. Again, this is a playoff stretch. You got to treat it that way. These next 3 are against playoff teams. You got to play it that way. So I'll have another episode out on Friday morning if you want to tune in. Hopefully we happy Joe Burrow on Friday morning. If we don't, I'll be angry myself. So thank you for tuning in. If you like the show, give it a rating. If you don't, go listen to something else. What are you still doing here? My name is Matt Edwards. If you want to talk to me, text me. Shoot me a note on the old Twitter. DM me. Do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to talk to me, that would make a lot more sense. You all have your own lives. The show is called In the Jungle. I appreciate you tuning into it. We'll see you again on Friday morning.